it's time to check out some more fantastic backwards compatible games for the Xbox Series X and S and the Xbox One. If you're anything like me, the Xbox 360 generation was absolutely friggin' fantastic in just how much great software and series came out back then. But now we can reminisce and relive so many of those great games with back compat. But whereas sometimes replaying older games today can make you see what a turd some of them are, but not here. These are the games that were really good before and still worth playing today. But there are a couple that some people will see and think, well, that shouldn't be here because it's shithouse. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, share, subscribe, and leave a comment down below, as it really helps the video get pushed and the channel get discovered. And let me know your favorite backwards compatible games. Be sure to check out my other back compat game videos that you should play and stop by the Discord. But now let's check out some top Xbox 360 games minus the Red Ring of Death drama. Let's do it. At number 10, it's Frontlines Fuel of War, and having checked this one out again recently, it still holds up fairly well, whether that be in its visuals, its shooting mechanics, the openness of the environments, or the overarching story that it has. It is obvious to tell that it is a product of that generation, when better storytelling was slowly starting to happen, but Frontlines still has some cringy dialogue and forced humour which wouldn't look out of place in a B-grade action movie from the 80s. But despite that, it's still an enjoyable romp through copious amounts of sandy deserts as you basically slaughter your way through each area. It's always kind of refreshing when you get to play as part of a team and have AI teammates during a single player campaign, and although they are dumb as batshit at times, it never takes away from the big picture. If you can pick up a copy of this cheap and feel like shooting up some enemies, but also being able to hop in some vehicles and also kill them with even larger weapons, then you can do a lot worse than Frontlines Fuel of War. It isn't an amazing game, but it's fun and solid. Okay, so at number 9, it's Dark Void, and there's probably a huge amount of people out there shaking their head in disappointment, or more likely cursing the screen for why such a mediocre game is included on the list. And what I say to that is, I couldn't agree more, but f it. For myself personally, Dark Void is that guilty pleasure, that little bit of shit game you know is shit, but you seem to enjoy it anyway. That's Dark Void for me. Enjoyable crap. It has the cover system for shooting, a story set just before World War II, which just suits the game so much. You travel to the void where you encounter an alien species, and you go about shooting from behind cover to take out the enemies, but the game also evolves as you go along. Think of this as part Uncharted, partly due because Nolan North voices the main character, and it's all I heard the whole friggin' time was basically Nathan Drake's voice. But that's not a bad thing, as I have a huge amount of fun with the Uncharted games. Dark Void is if you took the later Uncharted games and purposefully put things in and took things out to make them worse. Keep your expectations low if you play this, but you should. For number 8, it's Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, the bastard child of the Metal Gear series, where it takes a huge diversion from what the series is known for: the stealth, the sneaking, the gadgets. Attach all of those things to a hot air balloon that comes out of nowhere and let it go. Over the top action, action, action. This sees you play as Raiden, and you'll be up close and personal with the action as you hack, slash, slice and dice your enemies multiple times, plus face off against giant robots. It's all about speed and action, something Platinum Games is known for, and it would be great to get another in this series and on new hardware as well. I'm not a huge fan of the Metal Gear series, but this manages to take that universe and appeal to another type of gamer, but it still can be a load of fun for long-term fans as well. The story is decent, but the action itself is the real star, and it never gets stale, and that's a good thing, as sitting through those cutscenes that never seem to end sometimes with the other Metal Gear games. It's fun and responsive, and you feel like a badass as you dispose of the enemies and bosses. And for number 7, it's Binary Domain, and the Xbox 360 era provided enough of a power jump over the previous gen, plus the addition of HD visuals, that these sorts of action games really came into their own. But when it came to frame rates, many of these games they were just terrible in that area. But this has frames per second boost now. But if you want to unload a shit ton of bullets at a bunch of robots as their bodies lose metal parts like it's some sort of f***ing robot metal confetti, then you'll love this. The story isn't too bad. It takes a backseat to the action, of course, but good enough that I didn't want to just skip it all. I actually enjoyed it, but the gameplay is so satisfying that it never gets old. It's basically B grade in all areas, and it's still great. This is just one of these types of games on the Xbox 360 that kind of looked at the Gears of War series and said, I think I'm going to steal that cover system and endless supply of bullets, implemented their own style of cover system, and it all works so well. The other characters and AI teammates are also pretty good, whilst many other games with a similar feature often have you forgetting about them pretty soon and wish you could actually kill them yourself, so they stop getting in your way. This game was great all those years ago, and it still is now. Coming in at number 6, it's Far Cry Blood Dragon, and this is the Far Cry game which is the most different to the mainline series, maybe apart from Far Cry Primal as well, but for anyone that enjoys first-person shooters and likes that 1980s neon retro look, then I feel like you'll be slurping this one up in spades, as Far Cry Blood Dragon is a perfect example as to how, when studios take a chance on something different, it can often be better than the main games for many people, and this one really deserves a sequel on current gen hardware so it can look amazing in 4K HDR and 60 frames a second, as like I mentioned before, some games on the 360 just didn't have good frame rates, and Far Cry Blood Dragon is fucking terrible at times. A far cry from being anywhere near good. You see what I did there? Clever. Anyone who has played Far Cry will get the hang of this pretty quick, as it allows players to go in guns blazing with all the different types of weapons, or take more of a stealth approach and take down the enemies silently. The erratic performance is disappointing, and I really wish this got the FPS boost treatment as other games have, but this is still fantastic and worth playing. For number 5, we have Prince of Persia: The Forgotten Sands, and this is a series which goes back many years, and we've seen other games in the Prince of Persia franchise, such as The Sands of Time, Warrior Within, and The Two Thrones. And The Sands of Time is actually getting a remake, which is hopefully out this year, but these games I found always had such enjoyable gameplay, and it's a huge influence on the Assassin's Creed series when it comes to running, climbing, and jumping between the different parts of the environment. That sense of having more freedom than most games out there, but the game's settings and stories also hold up these days, and hopefully we see new games in the series as well. As you play, you'll get new powers, which allows for some gameplay diversity as well, but the core mechanics of scaling the environments in order to access other areas are what the Prince of Persia franchise is all about, and they are still excellent games. Up at number 4, it's the Bureau XCOM Declassified, and this can be considered another guilty pleasure of mine, as there are some definite issues with the game overall and its gameplay, but it just gets some things right that any problems I can just overlook. Yet another game with a cover system at a time when so many developers and games seem to be just downright in love with being able to fucking hide behind objects and pop out and shoot things. Plus, having XCOM as being part of the title and being played as mostly a third-person action game, this is another offshoot from a long-running and loved series. Set at the height of the Cold War during the early 1960s, you'll be tasked with taking down the alien threat that has invaded Earth. Pretty standard fare, but the overall package is greater than the sum of its parts for me. The story is interesting, the gunplay is decent, and the setting is great. It's just hampered by some shit performance yet again, and which really sticks out now, but give this one a go, and I hope we get another in the series. For number 3, we have the F.E.A.R series, and this could really do with another entry in the franchise, as it always gets mentioned whenever gamers talk of what games they want to see make a comeback. And if you like first-person shooters, being able to enter bullet time like we all wanted to be able to do in the 2000s, plus throw in a creepy kid, its horror overtones, and some crappy movement, then that's the F.E.A.R series. Plus, I'm one that wants another game as well. It's always good to get single-player first-person shooters, especially these days, with such popularity in multiplayer games and Battle Royale. This always struggled a bit in the frame rate department, and I included it in another video about backwards compatible games I wanted to see get the FPS boost treatment, which makes the game much more enjoyable and playable. They don't quite hold up in their shooting and movement mechanics when compared to more recent games, but if you've never played these, then you should check them out, as overall, they're still a good time. At number 2 is the Darkness series, and with every second movie coming out these days seeming to be friggin' based on comic books and superheroes, then it's time for another Darkness game, as each of them, whilst different and having some rough edges, were awesome back then and they still are today. You play the role of Jackie Estacado, and an assassination attempt is made on your life by your uncle. But a demonic force called the Darkness gives Jackie special abilities, and those abilities often lead to people getting all kinds of dead and losing a lot of fucking blood. That's how the first game starts. But for the original and its sequel, they are quite different in terms of their setting and especially their art style. The first going for a more realistic, dirty and dark game, whilst the sequel has a lot more colour and things going on, and has better gunplay too. The first game starts off a bit slower, whereas the sequel gets going straight out of the gate, and if you haven't played this series, then I highly recommend that you do, as it's the total package. And for number 1, it's Max Payne 3, and I put this in an older video at number 1 as well, detailing what Xbox 360 games we needed to become backwards compatible, and this was high on everybody's list it seems. So Microsoft must have watched my video. Max Payne 3 continues the great series, but it also has its own identity, and everything about it still holds up today. It's really just missing that 60 frames a second boost that would make it shit hot. From the gameplay, bullet time, and the different parts of the world that you visit. The third game is excellent, as you take control of the damaged and hard-ass Max Payne. And if you've never played this before, once you do, you'll probably sit back and question as to just why the hell has it taken so long for a Max Payne 4 to come out. And the formula here is fantastic. And the reason we don't have a fourth game in the series is probably because Rockstar makes crazy, dirty off money from GTA Online. The visuals still hold up and look great, the voice acting is good, it's fun, cinematics are great, good story, and the whole package makes this a must play via backwards compatibility. If you're in the mood for hard-boiled action, and where you can dive through the air in slow motion as you empty clip after clip into enemies, as you just sit on your ass on the couch, living out this action fantasy playing out on screen. Max Payne 3 has you covered. So there's a list of Xbox 360 games that you should check out via backwards compatibility, and it's just fantastic that all of these games and many more can come forward with us and are able to be played on new hardware, plus some having enhancements as well. But which Xbox 360 games are your favorite, and which ones have you checked out for the first time because of back compat? Please let me know down below in the comments, as that helps a lot in pushing the video out to more people. Give it a share, a thumbs up, subscribe, and check out the Discord, and I'll see you on the next video.